Welcome to the very first Around the Grounds, a vodcast brought to you by Groundhopper Guides. My name is Brian Reinhart, and I'll be serving as your host in this new video series. In each episode, I'll be joined by Paul Gerald, owner and founder of Groundhopper Guides. Paul, this is a fun new adventure for us, jumping into the vodcast sphere here, talking European football, experience of ground hopping. I think this is going to be a cool new series that we have started.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Also, I just learned the word vodcasting a few days ago from you, so it's kind of cool.
I was trying to bring us up. I was trying to make us a little cool. So yeah. we're sticking with vodcast.
1% cooler than I was a few days ago. So.
In today's episode of the podcast, we're going to focus on an upcoming competition that is on everybody's mind, and I'm talking about the third round of the FA Cup set for early January. Paul, before we get into the weeds too much, explain what the FA Cup is and the significance of the oldest national football competition in the world that actually dates back to 1871.
Right. So first of all, FA stands for Football Association, and way back in the early days of football, as they called it there, they needed a set of rules so that everybody, wherever you were from, you knew what game you were going to play when you got together. So thus was formed the Football Association. And then they decided to have a competition that everybody could play in. And that is officially called the Football Association Challenge Cup. Everybody just calls it the FA Cup. And you're right. The first one was in 1871. And it has happened every year since then. It is the oldest knockout competition in the world. And it's kind of for every football club in England, basically. Like the typical number of clubs that go into the competition at some point is over 700 each year. Everybody plays in the FA Cup. It starts in about July or August, with extra preliminary qualification rounds, which is literally tiny, totally amateur clubs where there might be 15 people out there to watch the game. And it's all regional. So you just play teams from your area, and there's no bracket. There's no seedings or anything. It starts with the smallest clubs, and it's totally random draw. They pull names out of the hat. Whoever comes out first is the home team. Whoever comes out second is the away team. And then they play. And then everybody that wins goes back into the hat. And in the next round, the next level of clubs, slightly bigger clubs, they go in, and you just keep doing this through the qualification rounds, and it could be anybody playing at anybody. And it's the third round proper, which is the first full weekend of January every year, that the Premier League and Championship clubs come in. So at this point, like the best analogy I can give it is like in baseball in America. Like imagine a tournament that extends from the major leagues all the way down to, like, I don't know, your local pub team, right? And if your pub team wins and gets through 5 or 6 rounds, they might get to play the New York Yankees. And the Yankees might have to go to their place and play that game. So every year, then somebody, some quite small club has made it to the third round and winds up playing a big club, and it's a lot of fun that way. But that's the FA Cup, and then it'll go from there. And the final every year is at Wembley Stadium in May, usually, traditionally right after the league season is over, and it's the big game. For many, many years in England, it was the only game broadcast live on television. So it was a gigantic event, and it is deeply embedded into British culture, the whole FA Cup. So,
and obviously the excitement right now, we are sitting waiting for that third round. As you mentioned, early January, 64 teams are left. And you've mentioned Premier League Championship teams. They're now in the draw for the first time, but you still have some lower division clubs. Very exciting year. Paul, I think we should talk about some of the matchups that stand out. I'm American. My pronunciations are terrible, so I'm leaving that all up to you. But
we'll get through it.
I'm going to have you first explain this battle of bitter rivals. Newcastle travels to Sunderland.
Right. So because of promotion and relegation that connects all these leagues, Newcastle recently got promoted to the Premier League, and actually not recently. They've been up there for a while, but they've been struggling. Sunderland, meanwhile, got demoted twice, relegated twice. So they've been 2 leagues below Newcastle. Now, Sunderland and Newcastle are about 15 miles apart in the northeast of England. And I don't even think hatred is the right word. I mean, it literally goes back to the English Civil War in the 17th century. They were on different sides of that. It is everything you could imagine, two groups of people just despising each other. But they haven't been in the same league for 8 years, so they haven't played. And this time in the third round draw, Sunderland came out of that hat first, and I sat on the edge of my seat and I was like, come on, Newcastle. And that guy pulled out Newcastle next, and it is on. So Newcastle is going to go play at Sunderland in the third round this year. And by the way, one of the fun things about the FA Cup is that typically at a league game, the away team is allotted maybe 10% of the tickets. So Sunderland has about a 50,000 seat stadium. So in a typical league game, maybe there'd be 3 to 4, maybe as much as 5,000 away fans. In the Cup, it's usually 3 times that. There could easily be 10 or 12,000 Newcastle fans go down to Sunderland for that game. They're going to be bringing in police from all over the country. It's going to be total madness. So yeah, that is referred to as the Tyne Wear Derby, or because Newcastle's on the River Tyne, Sunderland's on the River Wear. So if you live in Newcastle, it's the Tyne Wear Derby. If you live in Sunderland, it's the Wear Tyne Derby. I don't get involved. But that is a game that will be on television. By the way, in the United States, FA Cup is on ESPN Plus, and well worth the subscription, if only for this weekend every year. So
absolutely. I mean, like
so that's one of the fun things about the FA Cup is you get these rivalries that they haven't played in years, and suddenly they're going to play each other. So
those are two teams. Yeah, they first played 1883. Haven't played since 2016. 15 miles apart. I mean,
and when last they played, they were both Premier League, and I think Sunderland had won 6 in a row. So it is. Wow. They will be singing about that throughout the game. They are now in the Championship and doing pretty well. Newcastle, of course, are doing very well. So that will be must-see television as far as I'm concerned. So.
Now, I did mention it's not all Premier League and Championship squads.
Right.
Have a lower level team for you. Going to test your knowledge here a little bit.
All right.
Actually, we went over the pronunciations before this. So it's Maidstone United. They're the lowest ranked team in this third round. All right. Let's test your knowledge about them. And what is why is it so exciting for a lower league team in the pyramid to get to this stage?
Well, for one thing, money. Every time you win a game in the FA Cup, you get paid, and the club. And so literally in the first qualifying rounds, it's like, I don't know, a couple of £100 or something. But by the time you get to this point, just the fact that they won their second round game means they got a check. The other thing is, because they're going to be at home in the third round, they're going to sell out their stadium. But on the flip side of that is, like, if they had come out of the draw and let's say they get to go to Manchester United, which they don't this year, but traditionally the ticket sales money is split between the two teams. So if you're Maidstone United and you're down in the 6th tier, the National League South, your average home crowd, I'm guessing, is 1,500 people. And then all of a sudden you get half the money from Old Trafford, 75,000 tickets. That can make your entire, not just your season, you could like build a new stadium with that kind of money. So it's money, it's glamour, it's excitement. And of course, it's a chance to be, and you'll hear this a lot, the giant killers in the FA Cup is when a little club beats a big club. So they are, Maidstone right now is in the National League South. That's the 6th tier. And again, if you're watching, welcome to Wrexham. That's the league below where Wrexham started out and on the show anyway. So yeah, they are going to be at home against either Port Vale or Stevenage, who are both, I think, League One or League Two. So that's 2 or 3 leagues above them. Yeah, and so I've not been to Maidstone, but yes, that is how you pronounce it. We can.
There was a team, actually, the 8th tier, Ramsgate FC, but unfortunately they just got eliminated. So could you imagine an 8th tier team up at this level?
I've seen it just a few years ago. An 8th tier team called Chichester City. who was not even in the National League South. They're 2 leagues below that. I don't even know what league they were in. They had a good team. They had a good draw. They won their final qualifying round and made it into the first round. And then remarkably, the team that they were drawn against in the first round, Bury FC, went out of business. So they got a pass into the second round, and they drew a game at Tranmere Rovers, who up by Liverpool. Back then they were in the 3rd tier. And so an 8th tier team playing at a 3rd tier team. I went to see it, and I wrote a blog post about it on groundhopperguides.com. I got to remember to plug that occasionally. And they we'll put some videos over it, but they got beat 5-1. But it was 5-0 before they scored, and they were so excited when they scored that goal that I thought that they might storm the field. And even the home fans were clapping for them. It was a beautiful thing, and they were still singing into the night an hour after the game was over. So yeah, it's a big thing for a little club like this, and everybody in England gets all enchanted with the magic of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Everybody loves an underdog story, but of course, a lot of eyes, they're going to be looking for those Premier League teams. Paul, there's one huge matchup between a pair of teams currently in the top 8 of the Premier League. And like I said, I love an underdog story. There's a Premier League mainstay that has to travel to a League One club.
I think you're talking about Manchester United at Wigan Athletic.
Absolutely.
Yep. Wigan has been in the Premier League, and in fact, about 7 or 8 years ago, they won the FA Cup. They beat Manchester City in the final, and then about 5 days later, became the first team to ever win the FA Cup and get relegated in the same season. But whatever, they won the FA Cup 1-0 over Manchester City. They've been struggling since then to get back up there. But yeah, Manchester United has to go play at Wigan, which is close to Manchester, by the way, and again. That's about 16,000 seat stadium, and probably half of it's going to be United fans. But what's interesting about that is, like, does Manchester United play all their best players? Like for Wigan, this is a big opportunity. And by the way, one thing I forgot to mention is, Wigan will play at home against Manchester United. If that game draws, then they replay the entire game at Manchester United. So in the back of Wigan's mind is always like, yeah, we'd love to win, but if we get a draw, then we get to go play at Manchester United and get all that sweet FA Cup money. So you'll see that happen. I saw Plymouth Argyle play at Liverpool in the FA Cup one time, brought 9,000 people up there, held on for a 0-0 draw, and celebrated like they'd won the entire competition.
And of course, that big Premier League game or matchup I was talking about, Liverpool, Arsenal. Arsenal has won the most cups all time, 14. Liverpool won in 2022. I mean, everybody loves that battle.
Sure. And as we speak, I think they are 1 and 2 in the Premier League as well. So again, Liverpool coming down to Arsenal for the FA Cup, bringing 8,000 or 9,000 Liverpool fans. And, this is a good opportunity to mention that is one of 10 London FA Cup games where Groundhopper Guides has tickets that we can sell. We are a fully registered agent for several official resellers who have contracts with these clubs, so we can sell tickets to Arsenal, Liverpool, for example. And in most cases, even a big matchup like that, it's a lot cheaper than usual. I think because people figure they're probably going to play some reserve players, but trust me, Arsenal and Liverpool reserves are pretty good. So yeah, that is a big one, and will be a lot of fun.
Well, I was going to say, that kind of leads me into my next question. Why are the FA Cup matches great for fans to go to?
Well, for one thing, the number of fans, the away fans usually provide a lot of the atmosphere. So again, Liverpool at Arsenal would be fun no matter what. But imagine 3 times the number of Liverpool fans. And then at some of these, big versus small matchups, like I'm looking at the list here, and Ipswich Town, who is leading the championship right now and likely to be in the Premier League next season, they have to go play at Wimbledon, which is a League Two team in London. That stadium is going to be packed. It's going to be one of the biggest games Wimbledon's played in many, many years. Preston North End is going to Chelsea, again, a team that has I don't think ever been in the Premier League. Preston is kind of a steady second tier team, but they get to go to Chelsea and have their big game. And so the atmosphere can be fun. It's also just a festive time. Mm-hmm. It's like for Americans, it's kind of like the equivalent of our Thanksgiving college football tradition. FA Cup third round is something that people look forward to every year. So,
do you have a list available? Obviously, Groundhopper Guides helps people get tickets, and you mentioned a couple of them. But do you have a list of stuff or games you guys are selling?
Yeah, just in London, we got Liverpool at Arsenal, Ipswich at Wimbledon, Preston North End at Chelsea, Everton at Crystal Palace. That's another all Premier League matchup. Rotherham at Fulham. Rotherham, I think, are back in League One now, so that'll be a big day in London for all the Rotherham people to come go to Fulham. Leicester City at Millwall, which is two championship clubs, but Millwall getting a chance to beat a big club like that. We love Millwall at Groundhopper Guides. Bournemouth of the Premier League has to go to Queen's Park Rangers in London. We got tickets there. Burnley at Tottenham. That is another all Premier League. Bristol City at West Ham. That's championship visiting Premier League. And then Chesterfield, who are leading the National League right now in the wake. Now that Notts County and Wrexham are out of the way, Chesterfield is probably going to win the National League this year and be promoted. They go to Watford of the Championship. So that's 10 games in London just that weekend in the FA Cup where we have tickets.
I'm glad you mentioned Millwall. I've actually been to Millwall, and it's fantastic stadium, fantastic crowd. One of my favorite places that I've been to.
Yeah, and they famously, you can go on YouTube and look for it. 3 or 4 years ago, they beat Everton in the cup on a last-minute winner, and I tell you, you should go watch that video. So yeah, that is, you could roll into London that weekend, and this is, by the way, for 2024. We're talking about. They always have one game on Friday night, which this year is January 5th. They'll move one game to Monday night, the 8th. Usually, those two games are some game involving a small team, and because everybody loves that, and then the rest of them will be on Saturday and Sunday. So you could go to London and potentially see 3 games that weekend.
That'd be fantastic. But Paul, I'll get you out here with this. Tell our viewers once again, how can they get in contact you to begin their own ground hopping journey?
The simplest thing is just groundhopperguides.com. There will be links in the description below this video, and you can see a list of all the clubs where we sell tickets. We also have a consultation service. You can book time with me, and I'll go through the whole itinerary with you and make suggestions and answer all of your questions, because it is confusing. Like, how do tickets work? How does the schedule work? What's the FA Cup? Why is there a game on the schedule now that wasn't there a week ago? These are the kinds of things that we answer the questions. And so, yeah, we combine those ticket sales with the knowledge I've gotten from a couple hundred games. And great customer service, I have to say. So
I was gonna say, you might tease a future episode here. You've been to a few games, but you got the 92, so we're going to be talking all about that very shortly.
Absolutely, yeah. The top 4 divisions have 92 clubs in them, and I have completed the 92. We've already got at least one video on our YouTube channel about that now, so you can check that out. And yeah, it took me 100 games over 9 years, and we're gonna go deep into that a future episode. So.
This is exciting. FA Cup, third round, tons of tickets, tons of games in London. I want to thank everybody for tuning in to this first episode of the Around the Grounds Vodcast. We look forward to bringing you future episodes very soon, and hopefully we're going to see you at the grounds.